everyone. Today I wanted to share a watercolor illustration, a Halloween themed illustration at that, and I'm going to take you along the whole process and the concept. So to start with a little background, last year I also did a Halloween themed illustration, and it was actually the same characters that you see here, a little witch and her familiar, a cat that I have named Chester. The witch does not have a name yet, so if you have any suggestions, you can leave them below. But it was one of my favorite illustrations that I did in the year of 2023, and I feel like I really challenged myself with the pose and the colors and composition, and so I wanted to do something similar this year. This time around though, I had a bit of a difficult idea coming up with a concept because I wanted it to be more than just a showcase of the two characters. I wanted to have a little story element in there. Storytelling isn't something I'm extremely experienced with, so I actually went to the good old group chat my friends use and asked for some suggestions, just some ideas, and I got some pretty good ones, and so I went to my sketchbook and made little thumbnails for each idea until I found one that I liked. And then I built upon the idea itself. And what I came up with in the end was the witch and her familiar waiting at a broom stop. I like to think of this as like a witch taxi service for witches who have lost their brooms or don't have them with them. Maybe it's a broom retrieval service. Anyways, something along those lines. And I wanted to show that our little characters here are in a dark, spooky forest, and so they would really like to leave, I guess. And so that's kind of the silly little concept I went with, and I tried to have the characters be a little bit more expressive. I honestly struggled a bit with the composition of this piece and thinking about how I wanted the depth to look. And honestly, I really do want to work on more compelling composition and storytelling in my work. It's something that I've wanted to work on for a while, and I think I have been, but maybe at a slower pace than I'd like. But that's definitely one of my goals, especially for the coming year. But I want my illustrations to feel more alive and not just like a flat picture. I want there to be some expressiveness and a sort of emotion that you can get from the piece. Even if that emotion or vibe is just cute and goofy, that's okay too. I just want to have a little more personality in my work. I kind of want to put more of myself in my work and not just try to make aesthetic things. And while I could definitely think of some improvements that I would make, I still think that it shows some growth that I've made, and it's a step in the right direction, and that's really what I want to be focusing on. I think I'm also starting to pinpoint my style a little bit more. I almost want to say that my artistic style has like a couple different variations, some that are more simplified and some that are more complex. I wouldn't say realistic. I don't feel like my work has ever really given realism, but maybe more detailed than others. This is definitely a slightly more maybe simplified style, illustrative style. I don't really quite know how to say it, but it's one that I have a lot of fun with. And honestly, the sketches always do end up being a little bit more expressive than when I translate them onto paper. But one of the things that I like about this style is I feel like I can do more with it. And I guess by that I mean I can be very playful with my shapes and my shading and my colors. I think that's something that I really enjoy. Sometimes what I like the most aesthetically, I guess, isn't always the most fun to make. I don't know if anyone else has had that feeling where what they like to look at is maybe different than what they like to create. Not saying I don't like this type of style, but I think that in the past I would have wanted something a little more semi-realistic, but I'm finding that I have a lot more fun with something in this vein. Either way, I think that I'm always kind of striving to find my artistic voice, more so than a specific style. I feel like your artistic voice can be shown in many different ways, and I found even stylistically, even when I do things a little differently, those things still carry through. Whether it's my personality, or color palettes, concepts, there's a lot of different things that carry over even if the style of the piece isn't the same every single time. It's honestly something I don't think about as much as I used to, and it's kind of freeing not feeling stuck. Anyways, I think I've been rambling a little bit about style for too long, so let me jump into explaining my process for this piece. Now, looking back, I almost feel like I might have overworked it in the end, but I start off my process by doing a light wash of color, usually a yellow, and then I use a wet on wet technique to disperse some of the colors. Since in this piece I wanted there to be darkness and a little bit of glow from the light, I kind of had my dark spots in the middle and tried to spread some of the other colors I knew would be throughout the piece. After I got those general colors down, I did flat washes throughout all the characters and their clothing items. And then after that, I started adding details. And I think at that point, we're kind of caught up to where I am here. The details definitely take the longest, and I kind of slowly build them up over time. I find that the details also go faster when I plan more. Here I had somewhat planned stuff out, but some of this was also kind of on the fly. Really, this part was just about slowly building up colors and shadows. And looking back, I wish I would have kept it a little bit less intense than it ends up as far as colors go, but I was trying to keep values in mind so that different parts of the piece would stand out. So to continue on, I spent a lot of time deepening up this background, which may or may have not been a mistake. I do end up losing some of those faded trees in there because I decided I didn't need them. I kind of regret that a little bit in retrospect. I think that's the only downside to doing these voiceovers is I kind of see where I might have messed up a little bit. Maybe that's not a downside, but it hurts a little bit, I guess. But anyways, I mostly was doing this to add some more contrast to the piece, and I really wanted the darkness to be dark. Maybe that's a little redundant, but I wanted it to definitely separate the characters and the piece from the background. Now, something I've been getting into a lot more recently is line work, and it's actually one of my favorite parts of the previous piece that I did. This time around, I went with slightly darker line work, mostly because the background is a little bit darker, and I wanted the line work to help the characters pop, and also to add just a little bit of extra dimension. Some of what makes adding dimension here a little bit challenging, and why I use the line work for this, is because the piece, or at least the figure in it, is kind of small, so it's harder to make that detail stand out, or honestly even render the detail with smaller brushes. And I'm gonna be honest, I left a lot of footage out for the line work, mostly because I have a really hard time doing line work without having my face like 2 inches from the page, and it usually just leads to my head being in the shot and not really getting to see any of the process anyways, so I kept it a little bit pared back as far as footage goes. Which I try to keep as much of the process in, but I do try to cut out parts that are a little repetitive, both to save a little time while editing, but also so the video isn't like 3 hours long. This way, I was able to actually do the piece, show what I assume to be the most important parts of the process, while only speeding it up 2 times rather than like 4 to 8. Maybe in the future I'll try to do more real-time painting, but that's only if you'd like a 40-minute to hour-long video, so if you would be interested in that, please let me know in the comments down below. After the line work, I went back into different parts of the piece and tried to deepen up and also add some color variation. So you see in the hair that I'm adding a little bit of orange and yellow tones. That is partially to show the reflection from the broom stop sign, but also to help tie the piece together. I find that when you just do singular colors in one spot, maybe with different opacities and lights and darks, it doesn't stand out as much as when you add colors from elsewhere in the piece. And for the final touches, I usually add a little bit of colored pencil to add, again, some more color variation and some softness to the piece. It's also a great way to hide mistakes occasionally, and also to add lighter marks on top of dark watercolor. For example, here I was using this kind of light gray to add some fur to both our little cat here and to some of the foliage in that dark space. I also, again, want to apologize. I did lose a little footage here. The lighting in my studio is pretty awful, and so I kind of wanted to spare you all, I guess, and myself. Honestly, I should probably stop apologizing for stuff like that. Anyways, after finishing up these beady little eyes and a couple of off-screen details, it's time to show you how it all turned out in the end. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the piece. I feel like something could be missing. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I feel like it was a really good learning piece and definitely helped me work on some skills that I can build off of in the future. I'm also going to show what this piece looks like after I've done a little bit of editing in Procreate. I especially like to do this with pieces that kind of need a few extra details, but I'm unable to do so traditionally because it's too small or I've overworked the paper. So that's another little secret I have up my sleeve. And with that, I just want to thank you all for watching. I'd love to hear your opinions down below, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone!